Hello and welcome back inside the Parc Fermé for podcast number 882. It's Todd.
No, Todd, not now.
AKA Negative Camber. Tonight we're going to cover the Japanese Grand Prix. You know how we do this on race weekends.
We watch one, then we talk about it. Then we watch one, then we talk about it. Come on, Todd.
That's exactly what we do on race weekends. But before doing that, I have to introduce my co-host, and you know what that means.
Ripped from out of the wasteland. He's bad, he's beautiful, he's crazy. It's...
Hello, everybody. This is Paul Charles, the International.
Paul, how
Hello,
are you?
Everyone. I'm good. I'm a little
You're
tired,
back.
but I'm good. Yes.
Yes. All right. So before we get into this, I know that we made people on YouTube really mad because we waffled on about a bunch of crap that wasn't F1, and he couldn't understand why we wouldn't just get to F1.
Straight
Never
to it.
mind that you're the sporting manager of the harder racing Aston Martin team. You are in the industry, and we tend to talk about those things.
Right.
I mean, if I was like, in a rock and roll band that was on world tour, I'd tend to talk about it once in a while, but I'm not. Yeah. So SRO, big, the Hannahs coming through. Gray, Roman.
Yes.
How about that? Tell us.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, let me back up, folks. Guess what? Vegas, you got a pothole cover or something that's coming up, and everything goes to hell. You know what happens at Sonoma? The tarmac starts ripping up, and Paul makes a phone call. They just paved the frickin' track.
Yeah, that's what I did.
They just paved the whole track.
I pulled in
Paul
the
said,
favors.
It's right. It's from all your time when you lived in Sonoma working there.
Yeah, earned a lot of favors, took a lot of photographs, people.
So I have pictures of Paul there with the asphalt truck, laying asphalt.
Come on!
Come on, guys, get to work.
Pour quicker, work harder.
He had cold asphalt, man. Put it down, smooth.
Yeah, it was a wild week. Yeah.
Well, they made it right though, right?
They did an amazing job, and people were like, I don't think this is going to happen. I don't think it's going to happen because obviously over the winter, Sonoma got a repaving, and not much running had happened till we got there. And then, with SRO, there's a bunch of series running, and there's cars with big downforce with the GT3 cars and everything. And at the end of day one of our testing on Wednesday, the track was kind of ripped to shreds, quite honestly.
You sent me that picture. It was just like delaminating.
Yeah, it was just bad. And, I don't know the reasoning why it happened, what was going on, but obviously something went wrong in the initial paving, and but they fixed it. I mean, it took 2 days to fix it, but you can imagine they spent the whole winter laying a new track, and then they spent 2 days fixing the whole new track. It's like, oof, the cards weren't great, but at the end of the day on Friday they had one little sedan series running, and then they said, okay, we're going, and we're like, okay, we'll just go as long as we can. That we were expecting hopefully we'll squeeze in one race, but they did a great job in fixing it. All the people at the track and the series and everything did awesome to get the track
big
ready.
Thumbs up to Sonoma.
Yep, and all the races got in, and we went home. So very big thumbs up to Sonoma.
Well, tell us how you guys finished. This is a good result. Podiums for you guys this weekend. Yeah,
a number of podiums actually. We had 3 cars in two different series. So Gray does a single thing called GT America, which is more like a sprint race, and he got a couple of podiums in that, which was great. And then Gray and Roman, who runs in our IMSA team up, and then the tale of two Hannahs, two female drivers were in the endurance race, racing alongside Roman and Gray, and a couple of different categories, but they won their category in race 1, and that was Hannah Greenmeyer's first ever professional, GT car race. She'd only raced a car with a roof on once, and up until that point,
Yes. That's awesome.
So she comes from karting, and she's a great teammate to Hannah Grisham, who was, a couple of race winner from last year. So this team is going to be very strong. So they're leading the championship now, and Gray and Roman had a podium and a 4th place in the 2 races, so they're right up there too. So it was we got all the races in, and all the race cars came back in one piece, and we got a lot of trophies sitting in the driver's lounge. So it was being in my old hunting ground of Sonoma made it all the sweeter. I think it was
yeah,
great.
Yeah,
great
for
weekend.
sure. It's kind of funny to reference Hannah Grisham as the seasoned wily veteran now.
right. Yeah.
That's awesome.
She's still
Way
a
to
young
go,
whippersnapper.
I
Yeah.
know. I
Yeah.
know.
She had one season under her belt, so she's helped Hannah get adapted. But the other Hannah, I'll call her Hannah Marie now. But so they're working great together. It's a great, fun group of drivers and crew. I really like doing the SRO races, quite honestly. It's a bit more low key than IMSA, a little less stressful, but the motivation to win is very strong, and so we're looking forward to the next race at Sebring. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. When is that race?
That's in like 3 weeks.
3 weeks? Oh,
yeah,
cool.
The season. Yeah, it's like the winter, like in Formula One. The winter seems to stretch out a little bit, but when it goes, it's bang, bang, bang.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yep.
And when's your next IMSA race?
Next IMSA race is in a week and a half at Long Beach.
Long Beach.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
I love Long Beach. Is a great event. So anyone in California, if they haven't been, watch the Grand Prix of Long Beach, go, because there's IMSA racing. Actually, we've got an SRO car racing there too, and of course IndyCar races there. So it's a big event, big hoopla. Yeah,
it is, and you guys should go. And if you do, because like this past weekend, Sam Vance and a few other listeners visited you, right?
Yes, they did. Yeah. Sam was happy to ply me with alcohol of many types, which was very much appreciated. I haven't got all through it yet. Yes. Some of it's on its way to Long Beach too. So thank you, Sam and his buddy. They came by a few times and we had a good chat.
That's great.
Yeah, it's very good. As I say, I always encourage people to come say hi to me, and they did. And sometimes I got messages, people came by and I wasn't there, which is unfortunate, but got to see most people, I think. So good times.
Yeah, so if you guys go to IMSA race and everything, make it a point to go to harder racing, see if you can bump into Paul and say hi, and he always really enjoys that, and I get a big kick because Paul sends me pictures that he takes with you guys, and I get to see you guys, and it's great. So a lot of good fun. And
as I said, we're going to Long Beach, which is every day I go to Long Beach, or on my way to Long Beach, it automatically harks back to the first of one of two tracks I remember in Formula One being in the US and going, wow, I wonder what that's like, because Formula One was what started in the Grand Prix in Long Beach, and the Patrick Depaillers and them going up the hills and plowing down. It's like there's a lot of images from Long Beach that have stuck with me since I was a kid, and so it's so much fun to go to a track and race at a place where there's a lot of history there from Formula One.
Yeah. Well, speaking of a lot of history, there's a whole lot of history at this little track called Suzuka.
Sure is.
This is a fan favorite, a driver favorite, and I happen to know it's a Paul Charsley favorite track.
You bet it is.
And the only figure 8 track on the circuit. So we're going to talk about the Japanese Grand Prix because it was moved up. It's the cherry blossoms are beautiful, by the way, to the F1 TV crew and producers that showed a lot of that. Those were beautiful. Nice to look at. Let's do a little formation lap, set the table on this. It's a real driver's circuit, and Sunday's weather was considerably warmer than it had been all weekend. That led to some real challenges about what tire compounds they had left. They had the 3 hardest Pirellis on offer. So it really came down to strategy, who kept what going into Sunday's race. Some had too soft, some had too hards, and there were sort of split strategies. And this is a high degradation circuit, so how long they would last, and with that increased track temperature, a little bit of an unknown for the teams running into Sunday anyway. And also Suzuka, it's in my mind, this is a personal note. On my mind, Suzuka is a great reminder why it's much better to have corner names for fans.
Yeah.
I know drivers refer to them by their numbers, and that makes sense when you're talking to your engineer in T3, T6, T8. That makes sense. I get it. But for fans, that adds that instant recognition and that sense of history. When I say spoon curve, Paul instantly knows what I'm talking about. When I say 130R, or I say Degner 1, Degner 2, or Eau Rouge, or Kemmel Straight, or Pouhon, those names just instantly bring that imagery. If I told you turn 4, 8 at Spa, you're thinking, what is that, turn 8, So... I wish they would do more.
We have you Americans to blame for that, right?
Do we?
Yeah.
Is that us?
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry.
I think it derives from ovals. Maybe,
Did it?
Indy turn one to, I think, never, as growing up in England, did I ever hear any corner be numerized. Is that a word?
Because you had Stowe and
yeah,
Chapel.
everything had a name, right?
Yeah.
Even Spa has, with the no name corner, they won't give it a number, but they'll
No name.
Yeah, they won't give it a name, but they're definitely not going to give it a number.
Not going to number. Yeah,
But
exactly.
yeah, technically for debriefs and this and that. Now it's kind of
Yeah.
evolved, but I really think it came from like American racing, really.
Us bastards.
Your fault, Todd. It's your
Our
fault, Todd.
It's totally our fault.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, it is.
Stop yelling at Todd.
So, anyway, so that's my personal note.
Yeah.
FP, Free Practice 1, 2, and 3 was interesting to me. I was watching those, and I'll be honest with you, I was duped. I would have thought that Mercedes was better placed, and Ferrari as well as McLaren, watching practice. But it ends up, McLaren looked to be a little bit on their back foot, as far as sheer pace. And it was, I don't know. The reason is I was trying to think of what my fantasy GP picks would be. And I watched all three practice. Yeah. I had the first two. I had Max, Perez, but I had the wrong Ferrari. I had Leclerc.
Yeah, me too.
I got to stop picking Leclerc.
I had the same thing. Yeah, no
Did
kidding,
you?
right?
I got to stop.
Unfortunately, Ferrari might be thinking the same thing.
Yes, they may. They may be thinking that. So the reality of it is, I watched that, and I got to be honest with you. I thought in some of those free practice sessions, man, I thought Lewis looked on it. That car looked pretty hooked up during free practice. Telling what the power output was and weight and fuel loads and all that kind of thing. But still, there wasn't a lot of seesawing and there was no bouncing really. And I thought, man, I think Mercedes could be a little stronger. And we all know that tracks can flatter, certain tracks will flatter certain cars. That's just a reality of Formula One. So
Right.
I was thinking that while I didn't expect Mercedes to be faster than Red Bull, I did think that this circuit may be a little more friendly with the Merc chassis. But boy, then we got into qualifying and that was completely turned upside down. And then we got to the race and that just wasn't the case at all. So I was really surprised on that one.
Yeah, I mean, it happens. As you say, you don't know what program everyone was in, but things can radically change with temperature, with rubbering the track. Some teams that could be on top can be flip flop. That's kind of what it looked like with Mercedes, but I was just going to say when it got to McLaren, Paul, it was kind of interesting because it's a high degradation track. Yeah.
Then on Sunday it was much hotter, and Andreas Stella from McLaren said this. He said, and I'm quoting him, on the new soft tire week, and he's talking about how Lando managed to put in the qualifying position he did, right? He said on the new soft tire, we could mitigate some of our deficits like in low-speed corners. Mm-hmm. With new soft rubber, the corner becomes quite a bit shorter and it minimizes the disadvantage. So in qualifying, we didn't lose much time at the hairpin, for example. But on harder compounds and losing a tenth every lap in degradation, it exposed us a bit. So we suffered more than Ferrari, end quote, which is pretty surprising.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know. That was what they were saying last week, was that their car is great in high-speed stuff. Low-speed stuff is the thing they got to focus on a little bit. And obviously not a lot can change right now of where they are in the world, and no radical changes, etc. Right. It makes sense that the soft tire can mask those issues when it's at its ultimate grip,
peak,
right?
Yeah.
There's only so much more performance you can get out of a tire, and if you're in a, if the Red Bull can do it for 10 laps and the McLaren can do it for 2 laps, and you can kind of see how that would fall off during the race. So I think I said that last time, was that at least they know what the problem is and they're kind of focusing on it. So I'm sure they get their head around it and get more competitive. But these things are never overnight changes or fixes.
Right.
But one thing about the track is, you pick favorite tracks. and Spa is obviously a great one. But with the Formula One cars as they are right now, the challenges are less, right? A lot of corners that had challenges are now flat out corners without problem. And you've alluded to this before as well, which is that in Suzuka, there's always challenges. They're just at a different corner now. And
they are.
Yeah, and we even saw it in the race that passing opportunities changed for where the cars can make a move, etc. So it's just watching people drive around. I'm like, oh man, I mean, how special this track is, and could you make it any better? I'm not sure. I
don't know.
If you could somehow make the cars a little less so 130R was a bit more of a challenge, but up until that point, it's pretty amazing course, the layout.
It is. Yeah, I think we talked about this late summer when the Japanese Grand Prix happened, and we talked about it at the time, and I was saying that it's interesting to watch how the evolution of the car meets the evolution of historic tracks, and how the challenges have changed. So it used to be Spoon Curve was a real booger. Then it used to be R130 or the 130R, which was a real booger, right?
Yeah.
And that was never flat. And now it's Degner 2. Back then Degner 2 was a corner, but it wasn't the major challenge that it has become. And the same could be said of Spa. It was Eau Rouge, and it's not now.
Yeah.
But it could be a different corner, and how that evolved. Let's talk about the teams as they finished. We'll start at the top with the Red Bull. We had Sergio Perez, Checo in P2, Max Verstappen in P1. After a DNF 2 weeks ago, Max came back with, and I got to be honest, it was a narrowly won pole. What, a tenth or so over Checo. He executed both starts perfectly though, and that was good on Sunday. Took his Red Bull to victory, but what Suzuka kind of showed us is that his dominance may not be as great as it was last year, with Pole being a tenth over Checo and just under, around 2/10 or so, a little over 2/10 over Perez, around 2/10 to Perez, if memory serves correctly, and maybe around 3 to Norris.
Okay.
Whereas last year it was considerably more, right?
Right.
And overall, what seems to be the story is that the rest of the field have clawed back about a second from the fastest to the slowest teams. So versus 2023, the delta between the fastest team and the slowest team was 2 seconds. Now it's about a second. So that compression is happening all the way across the grid, midfield included.
But I think maybe it's a bit masking the performance advantage they have. I mean, I rode around in in-car camera with Verstappen's car, and to get that lap time, he had to do a whole lot less than everyone else was doing.
Yeah.
I mean, those cars were nervous, especially by the end of the lap. And watching Max, it was hard to differentiate between visually, his qualifying lap, ultimate qualifying lap, and just a regular good lap during practice. I mean, that car didn't have any foibles. It was phenomenal. And what we saw previously was that what helps Red Bull on Sunday is not necessarily having to squeak every little bit of performance out to get on pole on qualifying, and they can. And we know the cars are put in Parc Fermé after qualifying, so I think Red Bull are still using that philosophy of going in with a race day setup that's good enough to still keep them on the front row, and it certainly is. But man, I tell you, I mean, obviously we know Max dialed in with the car, but that car is dialed in for sure above everybody else.
Yeah, no doubt. And Max said that it was interesting because, and Sky covered this too during the broadcast, but it was interesting. Max said that, they started off the race with understeer in the beginning, but that eventually turned into perfect balance. Once the fuel started to burn off, weight started to reduce, track started to cool, and they ended up on the right compound. And by that time, Max made the comment that the car just, by the end of the race, the car was just perfect. It was beautiful.
Yeah, which was always what you do with a race car. You think where do you need the performance? If it's somewhere like Long Beach, let's just say you're looking for ultimate pace at the in qualifying because you have track position is essential. And some others, you just, the tire deck is going to be massive, so you set the car up for the big evolution of the car's performance over there. So,
right.
I mean, they just got it right. I mean, the car was, we thought that car would be good in Suzuka, and damn well it was,
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. For Checo, he got undercut by Norris, and he had to pass a few cars that were out of sequence, and also had to get back around Lando, which he did, to make up to P2, finish just a few seconds, a dozen or so seconds behind Max. It would appear to me, Paul, everybody says, whoa, Checo is, driving for his career, and he's showed up. I don't know if it's that so much as that I feel like maybe this year's car, just he works a little better with this year's car. It must be a little more comfortable for him.
Yeah, possibly.
In his style.
Yeah, I mean, I hate it when people say, "Well, just trying harder." No, they're always trying hard. Drivers don't go out there and just go give 50%. They're always trying hard. So all the things have to come together, right? As you're saying, the setup, the car has to suit their style, but their mentality has to be in the right place too. Being under pressure of a ride, I'm not sure that can work both ways, really, right?
Yeah.
It can make you just be scrambling, and I thought we saw that with Perez last year.
I did too.
So, I mean, it's definitely a change of mentality, I would say, with Perez. And if you can relax a little bit more, I think you can get more out of that car. You certainly know that Max Verstappen's pretty relaxed driving that car, and
yeah,
doesn't seem like a car you can just kind of force to do anything because you don't need to, right? You just sit back and let it go.
Yeah, let the car do all the work.
Yeah.
Yeah. So great result. P1, P2. Max had fast lap, maximized the points haul for the team. And in the end, what is that? It's 3 wins from 4 races for Max.
Yeah. I would say this is a bit more of an indication of the quality of that car versus the rest of the field. We've been a bit questioning it, right? We're like, well, obviously Ferrari won a race because the Red Bull wasn't in it, but all the sports dream. But the cars have been close. The Hell cars have been close. I think this being the ultimate forum for the Red Bull, hopefully it's going to come back, and some other races, the other cars are going to get closer. But I don't think anyone had a look in here.
Yeah, and it could be track specific. As far as what happened, I do think that the field is closed, and I think there's
I think for sure this track is the ideal track for this car. So if you're going to expose a performance advantage, it's going to be shown to its maximum here.
Be there. Let's see, Ferrari, Charles Leclerc, P4, Carlos Sainz P3. I wasn't feeling confident about Ferrari's pace on Friday, but it turns out their long run pace is still very good on Sunday as the team split their strategies. They were the only team to do so, with Charles on a 1-stopper, Carlos on a 2-stopper. Leclerc's issues really started, Paul, during qualifying. He said he just could not get the tire in the right operating window on the out laps for qualifying. And this is what cost him. He had to use 2 sets of softs, and that's what hurt him. This meant that he started down in 8th. And ultimately, I think if you crunch the numbers, that's why Carlos finished ahead of him. I think Charles drove an incredible 1-stopper race. And had he not started in 8th, had he started in 4th, 5th, he may have been on that podium.
Yeah.
But as it was, the deficit of 4 places to Carlos, and then you run the 2 strategies, and that's where it ends up.
Yeah.
But there's something off to me with Charles in the sense that I don't think Carlos is any quicker than Charles over 1 lap.
Yeah.
I just don't think so. I think we've seen plenty of past races suggest that he's not. But Charles, he drove a terrific 1-stopper, come home 4th, very strong and very long first stint to make that happen on the medium tires. But I'm not quite sure what it is, Paul. There's just, I don't know if it's something to do. I mean, he mentions the tires. He can't get them into the window for the outlap and quali, so he's being hobbled in quali and having to try to make up in the race. But something isn't quite clicking there.
Yeah, well, definitely things are tight enough where the qualifying position really can have an ongoing effect on you. No matter how good you are, and or how if your car is a second place. We've seen it with Perez even. He's in the best car on the grid. He gets a bad qualifying position. He doesn't get on a podium, sometimes, right? So it is important. It's tough. It did look a little desperate for Charles at the beginning. You're like, oh my God, what's going on with Charles? He should be moving up right here, but obviously he was on a different plan. And it ebbs and flows with whatever track you got, whether a two-stopper is just a waste of time and a one-stopper works, etc. It's hard to judge it, but maybe they're trying to band-aid his qualifying issue and trying to think of a different way. All right, maybe it would have been, they wouldn't have split strategies if they'd been side by side on the grid.
Right.
But when you are in a bad position, you have to rethink and try and think of a new way to get forward, because doing the same thing is not really going to get you any further forward. And they tried it,
right?
And I don't think it didn't work. It just there's just so much you can do from that place on the grid with so much stout competition.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it worked excellent. Yeah. It worked a treat, and I think he drove a brilliant race. It's just that, as you said, there's only so much you can do from eighth.
Right.
With the competition that you have.
Yeah, and it's not just where and obviously it's not like he leapt he was stuck back behind cars and wasn't able to do things. So it's not just the starting position, but not being able to move up very quickly at all. Yeah.
Carlos had a good race, managed his tires very well in order to have some of the tire left at the end of the race to claim the podium. Did a really good job. Carlos said his performance on both compounds was good. The strategy was good, and he executed to deliver a podium and keep Ferrari as second best behind Red Bull. In the end, how they finished really it was really just down to where they qualified, and that's the reality of it. But both of them maximized it in third and fourth, keeps Ferrari second best, and that's where we thought they were coming out of Australia, and
for sure
it would appear that is exactly where they are.
Yeah, it's still super holding true. I think they've got not as good as Red Bull. Maybe we're able to beat them on a good day, and maybe able to make progress with the car. I don't know. But they definitely seem to be a tip above the other teams. Yeah, although the other teams can get in there and mess their stories up. But Carlos doing a great job. I mean, he's putting himself in a prime position, I'll tell you.
Oh, man.
I mean, he may have his pick of the litter, quite honestly, of where he goes right now. And his confidence, I think Carlos, well, Charles as well, but confidence really, really has its benefits for him. If he's a little bit more relaxed, a little more confident, he can do really great things. And sometimes saying, you're going to be replaced next year takes some pressure off to a degree. Yeah. And I think it's just showing he's in a really good headspace, and he's really getting down with the car. So I said the teams may be auditioning for him rather than the other way around at this point for next year.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing after he got that podium on Sunday, Paul. I was thinking this is probably the best I've seen Carlos drive this year. I mean, he looks fantastic.
In general, consistent race after race. Yeah.
Yeah.
We've always seen him do well, but then there's been a blip downwards, but we haven't seen one yet. Yeah.
We haven't seen it. He's consistent, reads the race well, managed the tires, has the pace needed. I think he's having a stellar year. I think you're right. And I think it could be more of a case where Carlos chooses to go than where he has an opportunity to go.
Right. And it's going to be ever more frustrating for Charles.
Yes.
Because, they're basically handing him the keys, and to a degree, but as well as inviting Lewis into the room, which would make anyone nervous, right? So
he's got
a lot on his mind, that young fella.
Yeah, Lewis is going to come in awful fired up,
Yeah, and he's getting ready he's coming in to save Ferrari and do something that Charles couldn't do, else they wouldn't even be bringing him in, right? So.
Right. Yeah, it's going to be tough for Charles.
Yeah, it is.
Let's see. McLaren, Lando Norris P5, Oscar Piastri P8. Lando had a great qualifying session, was holding on to the podium early in the race, but the team boxed him early. Now, the reason they did that, they were covering Carlos, and this meant that their strategy was going to be a little slower late in the race because they boxed so early. They couldn't hold off Leclerc, and they ended up settling for 5th. But I'd argue that was a pretty inspired drive. I don't know that Lando was elated with it. He'd rather have finished where he qualified, but in reality, I think you could say they boxed him too early, Paul, but I kind of feel like they figured P3 with the tires we have on offer.
Yeah.
Let's just target Ferrari. Red Bull isn't our race, but Ferrari could be. Let's target Ferrari and see if we can do it.
Yeah,
and in the end, they couldn't. But
which is a realistic view, I would say.
Yeah.
I mean, they see the same things about Red Bull. They see the same visuals and data that we're all seeing. But I mean, and I think they know their deficit, as they were talking about. Over a longer stint, they're going to lose out on the low speed, so they're not going to have the ultimate car out there. So they run the strategy to suit that and try and make the best of it. They know that they're still working on it. So I think they're fine. And I think Lando did maximize. But you're never going to walk away, even if you maximize the car, you're not going to walk away going, wow, I feel great about 5th place. Right?
Yeah.
That's not what any of these teams are shooting for. That's not where the trajectory any Ferrari or McLaren or even Mercedes are trying to do. So, yeah, they're not going to be elated, but they are going to come away with a lot of points, and that's important early on, which they didn't have last year.
Yeah, man, it keeps them ahead of Mercedes and Aston Martin.
Yeah,
on the points, and I think that's important. Oscar had a good race going, but a few unforced errors, especially that late race bobble he had that allowed George Russell through. That was unfortunate, but it was the difference between finishing 8th or a little higher. It probably could have been 7th, possibly 6th, but anyway, hard to beat Oscar up. I think. Finishing P8, top 10, 3 places behind Lando, who qualified 3rd. It's not a bad day. He's pretty nonchalant in his comments post-race about it.
As usual.
Yeah, as usual. He's kind of, whatever. He's got the mentality there. He wants to be on the podium, he wants to win races, and I appreciate that. That's what I like about Oscar. But yeah, he went wide. He had a lot of pressure from George on fresher tires behind him, trying to hold him off, and welcome to the majors.
Yeah, exactly. It's I don't think the car was perfect. Maybe Lando's experience or whatever was able to hold back a little bit where, and not go above and beyond in the performance. But yeah, under pressure, easy to do, especially in probably the most difficult corner to get around on that track. So Oscar's still learning. He's apt to make a couple more mistakes than Lando, but when the car's performing, it brings his chest up, But when you're struggling around, I think sometimes you can kind of lose a little focus maybe and not be in as good a headspace. But I think probably chewing down a little too hard on Oscar at this point. I think it was just a one mistake in one corner, and the car wasn't brilliant. So
I agree.
Apt for making that mistake is probably percentages are pretty high.
Yeah, I agree. Let's see. Speaking of experience, Aston Martin, Lance Stroll in P12.
Different category.
He was in a different category.
He might regret saying that.
He may. Fernando Alonso, P6. It may not look like it on the outside, but I do think Aston Martin is a much improved team this year. I think they look much better this year than they did last year on balance. I think they've progressed really well. Fernando showed that with good qualifying effort on Saturday, then making his soft compounds, start to pay dividends on Sunday. Fernando said he thought maybe they overachieved a little bit on Sunday from what he thought they would be at. But he stopped for mediums and the hards and was able to keep Piastri in his DRS range in order to make life difficult for George, who was on a charge on fresher tires. So,
yeah,
I think that's that wily old Fernando.
It's incredible.
That guy, we've talked about that before. It's like having ice vision with Wayne Gretzky. He just knew what was going on everywhere on
and
the
he
ice.
plays
And
every
it's the
trick
same
in the
for
book.
Fernando.
Yeah,
he does. He plays every trick. You think, well, he brake checked George. He just lifted a little earlier, took a different line. He knows what he's doing.
He does. He definitely knows what he's doing. He's so smart. And in the past, he was just fast. But I think old age and treachery has taken his place. He's still fast. He's still absolutely fast. But man, does this guy drive a race? Does he
Wouldn't
see
you love to see him in a Red Bull right now?
Oh my God. That would be
imagine?
quite a thing. I don't know how politically that would work, but yes.
Yeah, well, no, I don't think it'd go. I think that team is ran by the Verstappen family.
But hey, we didn't think, honestly, we didn't think Alonso would last at Aston Martin. We thought that was going to be an issue, but he, not only does he play it well in the car, he plays it well out of the car for his own benefit, right? And it is really Team Alonso, and
it is,
and how he behaves with other people. He makes everyone gets the right people on his side. He gets the right feeling, and when he's on the track, he uses every device that you can possibly imagine, and then some to keep the car. I mean, just using the DRS to keep George behind. I mean, the guy's a genius, I mean, he's basically saving all his energy up so that when the DRS kicks on for Piastri, he's not going to be vulnerable, and he just plays it so good. It's
he's
so fantastic to see.
Yeah, it's such a fine nuance. I just feel it's just so cool to see him drive. People always talk about, when they, if you talk to some veterans, what a pleasure it was to watch Senna race, or you and I have been and watched Schumacher race, right? Which was surreal watching him hit the apex exactly at the same place like clockwork. It was unbelievable.
And they're not racing against a bunch of idiots. That's the thing. I mean, they're racing against absolutely brilliant drivers, and yet
creme de la creme.
Yeah, and yet they've still got a couple of cards up their sleeves that no one's expecting or can even play at this point.
Yeah, and it's the same. I feel the same with Alonso. I feel like it's been a real pleasure watching him race. And as much as it'd be great to see him in a dominant car where he'd win titles, if you're an Alonso fan, you wish that was the case. Yeah. But it's also been fun watching him in a non-championship winning car and to see what he can do with it, right? And I think this weekend's a good example in that Aston Martin. I think they hit the ground. They came with some upgrades this weekend. It seemed to help, but Alonso says that they need to study the data on that to understand the real impact. But to take that car, have a great qualifying, then put it in P6, they're ahead of their customer, the Mercedes team. It bodes well for them. He's dragging the points to that team single-handedly.
Really is,
For Lance, not as good. He had a tougher day, 3-stopper in the end, and he had a serious lack of pace on the straights, as evidenced. He said the other cars were in a different category, and that's a Lanceism. He's excited.
Not in a good way, but it's excitable.
It's like me. There's an eclipse today. There was an eclipse.
We survived.
I did survive the eclipse. How we managed.
I don't know.
We'll rebuild. It's crazy. It's an eclipse. We had one 6 years ago. And this was all compounded by his P16 in qualifying. Really. But to be fair to Lance, I mean, I'm not picking on him here. The qualifying's hurting him, just like we talked about Leclerc down in 8th. Right?
Exactly.
They could give Lance a great strategy, and he's only going to make so much out of it. And he did try. I mean, he was passing. He had 2 passes in the S's.
Yeah.
Right? Now you have fresh tires and everything, but it takes a serious, it's a serious gumption to pull that off in the S's. You thought everybody's going to wait for a DRS zone, not Lance. He passed in the S's.
Right.
It's impressive.
Yeah, it is. And when you were in that deficit in qualifying, as I said with Leclerc, you've got to think of something else, which is why he's slow on the straights, because he would have to fight his way through a lot of people. And with, obviously getting in people's dirty air and everything, you need a bit of extra downforce just to stick with it and then use the DRS to keep passing. And he did. He moved a long way. But ultimately, when you're sticking out there and with all that downforce that enabled you to get to a certain point, that was kind of where the brick wall stopped, right? Which is what he's frustrated about. But that's what enabled him to pass all those people where he did and actually make some gains, and which could have been points, very easily. But it wasn't. But coming back from there and having a chance at points was actually a lot better, considering no one's dropping out that's in the top 5 teams, right?
Right.
So, it would be tough to get in the points from back then, but they got close, and so I think what they did was right. The race just didn't pan out in order for him to get anything out of it for him.
Yeah,
but he's got to figure out the qualifying. I mean, that's
I think
it's not news,
Yeah, I think that's it. And people, it's easy to sit on a couch and throw darts at this. But the men and women in that team are wickedly smart people. They know this. They know the qualifying is the Achilles heel. They've got to solve for that. Lance knows it. He knows if he'd qualified in, P12, P8, something like that, then his results would have been a lot better, and he knows that. And that team is going to be working on it feverishly, trying to remedy that. I'll tell you who else knows it. Alonso knows it. And he doesn't need the team to tell him that. He knows it, And so that's the difference, right?
Yeah. And Lance has been capable of getting fairly close. It's not like it's out, it's out bounds that he should be, just a couple of places behind Alonso or whatever. He has done it. It's just, every new car comes with different challenges and, different people working on the team, etc. But they need to get down to the fundamentals to figure out what Lance needs that he's not getting right now.
I kind of feel like in Lance's mind, the thing he's got to focus on is consistency, just being consistent with that qualifying, with those laps, with that pace, and finding that consistency and the drivability in that car. And maybe it's a setup thing. Maybe he's struggling in qualifying. Maybe he's struggling like Charles, getting those tires in the right operating temperature over one lap versus long run race pace, which is easier for him to do. Maybe they could come up with some ideas. And in that case, if I'm Lance, I'd be getting Fernando a Harry and David fruit basket. Have him
I'll be
teach him
following him around
how he
everywhere.
does that.
I'd be
would
following
too.
him to the bathroom, crying out loud, trying to figure out what he's doing.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's the thing. I mean, it's a tough thing to be a teammate to a Verstappen, to a Lewis, to a Alonso, right? They can do things that normal drivers can't do. And so when you're up against that, it can get frustrating and confusing. I mean, we saw how we still see it all the time, but way back when, even in his Renault days, how Alonso changed his driving style completely because that's what the car demanded, right? And everyone's like, what are you doing? And it's like, well, it was working because he was winning. And he's kind of doing the same thing. And maybe it's hard for Lance to be able to even figure out how to do what Alonso's doing in the car, which is maximizing the performance of that car,
Which is exactly, I think, what Max does.
Yeah.
Right? It's what Schumacher did. And it does separate the greats. Because you brought it up several podcasts ago. We talked about this a couple of years ago, about how you got such a kick out of watching those onboards of Alonso in that Renault and how he just jammed that car, into those corners like that. But he found a way to make that car, and he won 2 titles doing it. And everybody's like, what is he doing? You don't see any of that today.
No.
In the Aston Martin. There's none of that.
Right. It's not just his natural thing. It's something he saw that the car needed, so he changed himself to make it better.
And he doesn't need to do that with this car But rest assured, in this car, he's doing something exactly what that car needs to get a P6, right?
Yeah.
And that's the difference from some of these guys that make, all the difference. Like you said, if it's a Max, I think Max is very much, because I think Checo is scratching his head. How is he doing this? You know? And that's the difference between the champions and the non.
I've been lucky enough with the Hard Racing to see a number of very good drivers come through, and drive the cars, and you see their different strengths. It's like, how is he doing that with so little? And some drivers can dust stuff off the back of their cars. What it is, okay, well, I'll figure it out. I'll just do something about it. And then there's other drivers that are like, no, we have to change this and try and adapt the car to them, rather than see that the car is what it is. So you have to do something to maximize it, rather than just go down this constant hole of trying to make changes to try and fix it to your liking.
Yeah. And that's what I think, is it fair to say, that's what I think I'm waiting for from Charles.
Yeah.
Right? We saw that, remember, when he was at Sauber and he was chewing the tires off the back of the car.
Right. He had a tough time.
1 year completely changed his driving style and really catapulted up, and then got Ferrari. And so now we're looking for, you got to figure out what that Ferrari's wanting, at this point, and to overcome that qualifying deficit and those kind of things. And that's what separates the really, really good drivers and the champions. So,
yep, absolutely does.
Mercedes, Lewis Hamilton P9, George Russell P7. Although they had no updates in Japan, they have made significant progress in correlation data with this car setup, with Lewis saying that, honestly, it's the best the car's felt in the last 3 years. And if you would have asked me, I would have said that the Merc were on song just watching him on Friday practice sessions. But come Sunday, it just didn't come all together. It just... I don't know. It was just another story altogether. And it caught me off guard a little bit, because I was watching Lewis's on boards on FP2 and FP3, and he's Lewis. He just looked terrific. The car looked hooked up. It wasn't bitching and screaming into the corners, and the rear end wasn't going crazy. And gosh, I really thought they'd be better than that. But anyway, during the race, though, Merck used that second restart, Paul, to fit hards on. So that gave them options of a one-stopper or two-stopper. At least that's what it appeared to. The thought of a one-stopper didn't really materialize, with Lewis even ceding position to George, because George was a little quicker, to see if they could make that work. And if Lewis couldn't get those hards in the window, they weren't really working, maybe George could, so he let George by. Very magnanimous of him. George couldn't get that to work. They had to change both of them back to a two-stopper. That put him behind the 8-ball. Lewis said the hards didn't feel great, neither stent. And he had a lot of understeer, he said, so that didn't bode well for him. And then George had to switch to that two-stopper too, but late in the race. Now, he had fresh tires, and he did mount an attack on Piastri. He came home in 7th. But it was a little odd, Paul, to watch that. Certainly when they went hard, you thought, ooh, they could do the one-stopper, but the track position just wasn't there.
Now, how many, was it the first time they got on hards was in the race? Sorry, I was a little busy this weekend. I didn't see everything, but the low allocation is hards, right? So you don't get a lot of running.
Yeah.
Seems like the allocation works. They just throw a bunch of softs and maybe some mediums for the practices for the teams to sort the car out, but the hards are a bit more of a mystery till you get to the race.
Right.
It is weird how Lewis was very amenable. Kind of, I don't know. Does that say something about his mentality right now?
It surprised me. I didn't think I'd ever hear him say,
I mean, they didn't even ask him. Well, as far as we know, I mean, they could, but for him to offer that up is very un-Lewis-like. I don't know if he's, he comes into the season. Obviously, it's his last season with Mercedes. I'm sure he came in with the same enthusiasm, but now they're kind of figuring out it's a bit difficult, right? They're not in the hunt to win a race right now, and Lewis is already seeing the red car up the road, and is his motivation a little less? I don't know. I hate to question it, but it's a little strange to me. A little strange.
It's just not what I would have expected. Hey, do you want me to get out of the way for George?
Yeah, yeah. You don't even have to ask me. I'll just let him go.
Yeah, that's just not. I don't know. The Lewis I know would not have made that offer. Sorry.
Right.
So I don't know what the deal is with there. It caught me off guard.
Yeah,
it definitely
did.
I
mean, maybe it was something that they had agreed to in the
maybe
pre-race, but we know those things go awry very quickly when you got the bit between your teeth,
yeah, the visor's down.
Yeah. So I don't know.
No, I agree with you.
We'll see.
I was surprised.
Yeah.
Let's see. RB, Visa Cash App.
Ah, yes, rolls off the tongue. That does.
It does. VCarb.
Yeah.
Which everybody just calls RB.
Yeah, which is kind of, think how much money they're paying to be on that car, and now everyone's abbreviated it so no one has a clue.
I know.
It has no brand identity at all.
I know. Visa
hey, that's what you get for having a team name that's like a sentence long.
I know. Yeah, you got to think of it as like Visa. Well, wait a minute. Even the official timing and scoring doesn't have our name in it. It just says RB.
Yeah.
Well, we want our money back. I thought we were going to be Visa Cash App RB.
And everyone was going to go crazy saying it all day long. Yeah.
Yeah. And now nobody even talks about Visa. Can we get our money back? Yeah. Could I speak with Franz? Oh, he's no longer here.
Yeah.
Sorry. You did the deal with Franz. Sorry, he's no longer here. We let him go. Yes. Dan Ricciardo at DNF.
Netflix are real bunch, aren't they?
Yeah, who has the last laugh now, Dan? Bet Netflix thinks Dan's a real bunch of, you know what. You got a DNF. Yuki Tsunoda P10. What's the one thing Daniel Ricciardo doesn't need right now? That would be a DNF. But that's exactly what he got as he drifted right in.
I was going to say be beaten by his teammate, but that's even worse a scenario.
That's even worse, yeah. Right. Yeah, he drifted right, hit Albon, and took both of them out of the race. Not good at all. Don't know what to tell you about Dan, folks, but I will tell you that the F1 TV production crew, they know what's going on because every time they got Dan, they're always panning a little wide and showing Liam Lawson standing there. Every
you see
single
that?
camera angle.
Oh, you're right.
Is a picture of Dan, but then there's the pans over and there's Liam.
Liam's like, no, not yet.
Yeah, I know.
Next
so
race.
The F1 TV crew, whoever the producers are, hint, nod,
Yeah.
They're
they do show a lot of Liam time, don't they?
They show a lot of Liam.
Yeah, or when they got a video of Danny going around the track and then they go back to the Red Bull thing and then there's Liam looking at it. Going,
there's Liam.
I don't know.
Yeah.
What's wrong with that guy?
Yeah, I know. And then he wrecks with Albon and then there's a shot of Liam. It's just, oh boy, poor Dan.
That'd be a difficult decision for them to make after how
it would be.
We're bringing him back in a team and even the Drive to Survive thing. Ricciardo did that test and he blew everyone away, and then he comes back and it's like, I don't know. Tough.
It's 4 or 5 races in the season. Yuki's got him. I would say if I'm Laurent Mekies, I what do you got to lose?
Yeah.
Put Liam in for a race or two and see what happens.
Yeah.
Because Dan right now is not scoring points.
Yeah.
Yuki is.
Send Daniel on a couple of bicycle rides, really long.
Go on walkabout.
Yeah, it's tough.
It's tough.
Yeah,
tough. I don't know what to tell
Daniel really hasn't with the new cars. It's been a long time since he won a race with McLaren, obviously, but it's been a long time since we've been like he's one of the top 5 drivers on the grid. I don't think anyone's saying that anymore.
No, there was a time most everybody would have rated him right there as one of the top drivers on that grid, and nobody feels that way now, unfortunately. And I don't feel like Dan's been the Red Bull Dan, since 2014 and the new regulation changes.
Yes,
so
and
I don't know
maybe that's as simple as that. It's just the regulations just don't suit him.
I don't know.
Yeah,
but I think at some point RB's got to do something. Seeing the rest of the season out with Dan crashing or out of the points, and Yuki's your points hauler.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Especially as I said, if the top 5 teams, are filling up all the points, those points for anyone below that, they're like gold, right? Any point. I know it's silly to say, oh, he scored a point, but a point is hard to achieve at this moment.
Yes. Yeah. And could be worth tens of millions of dollars.
Right.
So it's important.
Right.
Speaking of Yuki, first Japanese driver to score points in his home race in 12 years.
Mm-hmm.
Kudos to Yukester. That's awesome. Great job, Yuki. A lot of pressure there. It's a good run as he fell out of the points early on. But really, kudos to that team, man. They had a fantastic pit stop. He came in with all that traffic, and that team put him out ahead of all. He
separated
must have
him. Yeah.
3, 4, 5 cars. I don't know how many cars he jumped in that stop, but even he came out and did an F-bomb on the radio. He was very
not in a negative
grateful.
way either this time.
Not in a negative way, yeah. Right. He was very grateful for that pit stop because that really put him. That was the difference between points or no.
Yeah.
And put him in the point. A great run from Yuki.
No, he did do a great job. As you say, pressure is a big thing. On a race weekend, he's probably being pulled left, right, and center for interviews and this and that, and just the pressure from the crowd. And we saw a bit of a new Yuki. I don't know if it's a new forever, but it was a new for the day. He was polite to his crew. He was appreciative of what he got. And he didn't make a mistake on track, and he was fast. And he made some great passes. So I think best Yuki I've seen for maybe ever. I know he's had better results, but as difficult it is to be P10 in that race against who was in the race, I think it was.
I agree.
Hopefully he can carry this on. Hopefully it's not a flash in the pan. I'm sure there's a lot of talk behind, in the room about him getting his head straight and learning, how you have to be a team player to get the team to support you. It's very easy to be a petulant child, Formula One, spoilt person and demand this and demand that. And it's may not easy to quantify what a mechanic or an engineer or the effort they can put in to give you that little extra. But it happens. It absolutely happens. It happens when Alonso does it, when Schumacher did it, Senna, all those, they were able to extract a little bit of extra out of all those people. They, maybe think once, maybe twice, maybe 3 times, a bit more for a driver that's, appreciative and rallies the team behind them rather than person, well, it's 5 o'clock, I'm off. It really is. It's hard to quantify, but it's a real thing. And so let's hope for the best.
Yeah, I agree. He's Yuki looking for his forever home.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Haas F1. Nico Hulkenberg P11, Kevin Magnussen P13. Nico had a bad second start, lost ground, so an early stop for Hards, which suggests that they were toying with the idea of a one-stopper. As his pace dropped off late in the race with those tires worn out, they boxed him again for fresh rubber. Fought his way back to P11, was trying to hunt for a point there with Yuki. Couldn't get it done. Nico said that regardless of that, he said that he's been actually pretty impressed with their pace. Mm-hmm. And I would say there's probably quite a bit to be happy if you consider that he was P11 and where they were last year.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he's right.
I think so too. I mean, you think, who would the last team in the world think you could do, even think about a one-stopper last year?
Yeah. Right.
It's like Haas. No, they're the last team on the grid. They couldn't even do it. Yeah. They'd make a one-stopper for everybody race into a 3-stopper. So quite a turnaround in that, and as well as having just good pace as well. It's one thing to make your tires last. Usually, that can slow you down, but they've really done some great stuff over the winter. We still question how much they can progress with a car because of their funding, etc. But I think overall, it's very positive what they did over the winter. So it's actually, whatever package they've had is way better than the package they've started with over the past 2 seasons. So knocking on the door in the points without some crazy thing happening in the race, I think is awesome for those people.
Yeah, good testament. And so kudos to to the men and women in that team working to put this year's chassis together and working with Delar and trying to change their fortune. You guys have done a great job and have done that. And it's hard work. It's hard work to do on a limited budget. And with the whole Gunther thing, I know that, politically, sometimes that's upheaval. And you guys are hanging in there. And great job, really, from the team. Kevin, a little tougher day. He was running the top 10 briefly, but then he boxed, got into traffic, spent most of the day battling the Saubers, Alpines, and Williams, and for midfield glory, basically, is where he was mired. But still, good pace. And I would say that right now, I kind of feel like Nico's got the upper hand here.
Yeah.
And I think Kevin may want to try to remedy that, would be my advice. And I'm sure he's thinking about that.
Yeah, I would say they're definitely leaning a little bit more on the Hulkenberg side of the garage right now. He's doing the qualifying performances and he doesn't disappoint in the race for the most part, right? So Kevin can be quick though, but
he can.
Yeah, he can dogfight pretty good.
He's a hard dog to keep under the porch.
He sure is. Is.
Yeah. Let's see. The Kick Sauber in the Kick Sauber, Valtteri Bottas, P14, Joe Guan Yu, DNF. Joe boxed and retired early with gearbox issue. That's really all there is to that. Valtteri actually looked on pace this weekend. He looked pretty good, Paul, during qualifying. Qualified well again during the race, sniffing for a top 10. Briefly, but he had some wheel-to-wheel battles with Magnussen, as I mentioned, and the other midfield players kept him out of the points, kind of got into that DRS situation. That bunched things up, made life a little more difficult for him in the traffic. So when he boxed, it's just kind of that window, and they either, just the way the race strategy played out, he boxed, came out in traffic, and he was pretty much mired there.
Right.
The good news, though, they didn't have a slow pit stop due to a wheel nut. So there's that upside for Valtteri. He was impressed. He felt like they made some advancements. He thought the pace of the car was better this weekend. And, P14 isn't anything you want to write home and brag about, but I do think he did look better this weekend.
Yeah, it's hard to come out with a lot of enthusiasm, quite honestly. Obviously, they didn't have a horrible pit stop this time. But they certainly don't have quick pit stops, and when you're fighting as they do with everybody around, and obviously a great pit stop will leap Yuki ahead of everybody. A bad pit stop will put you at the back, albeit in the same area on the track, but you've got nowhere to go. You got nowhere to go.
Yeah. If that wasn't worth writing home to Mom about, then Alpine is worse. Alpine, Pierre Gasly, P16, Esteban Ocon, P15. Alpine started both cars on soft, but then at the restart, they chose to switch, like Mercedes, to the hard compounds, giving them that option of potentially going on a one-stopper. Ocon and Gasly touched, though, at the second restart, or the restart. And Esteban said it didn't really impact their overall race. I mean, there was probably some damage, and it probably, had a little bit of impact, but their overall, race really wasn't impacted by that. Although team boss Bruno said it did. He said, well, we had damage, and that's what caused it.
Seems like a scapegoat to me.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he said, it's like 30 points of arrow. All right, gotcha.
Yeah, if Ocon isn't whining about it, I don't know who would. So.
That's what I'm thinking. I was thinking the same
that
thing.
Guy is
if Esteban isn't whining about it and he's saying it wasn't that big of a deal, for you to come out there and say, oh my gosh, that damage cost us the race. I don't know. If anybody would know.
Yeah, easier when you do the Monday shakedown, with the rest of the corporate board. God knows how big that is at Alpine.
What are we going to tell Ryan Reynolds?
Yeah,
what are we going to tell Ryan? It's 30 points of arrow, Ryan.
Yeah, just keep congratulating him about Wrexham. Keep his eye off the.
But we've been watching Wrexham.
Yeah, Wrexham's great.
Wrexham's great. Boy. Yeah. So there's that. Not good.
Not as desperate as the first race of the season, but not much better.
No. The team did bring upgrades too. but you'd be hard-pressed to tell if they had any meaningful impact,
Yeah.
given the clash and the damage.
Unfortunately, the big upgrade is the one right behind the driver, makes all the noise, and that they ain't doing anything about that. Yeah.
Yeah. The big noisy upgrade behind him. Yeah, I know. Yeah, I feel bad for Ryan and Rob. You know, if they were thinking this is Wrexham V2,
hey, I tried to tell him. I I warned him.
I know.
They didn't listen
Ryan,
to me.
He doesn't call me anymore.
Yeah.
You know, I tried. If he would just have called me, I would have told him who to invest in, and he would be.
Him a message.
He would have been having another Wrexham story set up here, but anyway, what are you going to do? Now we are down to Williams. Alex Albon, DNF, as mentioned previously. Logan Sargent, P17. Albon had a good start, running up alongside the RBs. The Visa Cash App RBs.
Yeah, make sure you get that in there if you have complaints. Yeah.
Visa, get a refund and send me some of the money because I'm mentioning you. All right, see how that works? Daniel drifted wide, took them both out. Let's hope the damage isn't too bad on that chassis, Paul, because at some point, if it is, they're going to be going into China in 2 weeks with a chassis and a half, right?
Ugh,
This team is on the back foot, so that was not good. Logan, however, was running well, went wide at Degner 2. See, I did that, Degner 2. You knew exactly what I'm talking about.
I did. Got it in my head.
Yep, I can even see it in my head. And that dropped him back, unfortunately. Logan said he must have bottomed out on the curb, and I'm thinking, I think even Ant said it was really his entrance and outcome of
I think he went out over that curb. Probably did,
Yeah, and I think maybe that kind of set him up to be off on Degner too, which is unfortunate. However, he got back on track, put him in the back. They had to box again. He is at the back of the grid and finished in P17. That's how they finished.
Yeah, not pretty.
Not good. I keep going back to that podcast, Paul, when you so accurately said, yeah, James did a good job last year, but, that's low-hanging fruit. This year's the real shit. This is the real stuff.
And he's living that nightmare every day till that new chassis comes out, right?
Yeah.
It's like,
this is the
stupid.
Yeah. This is the part of the job where he's like, Han Solo, no, what are you doing taking it apart? No, this goes there, that goes there. We're not trying to get us out of here. You're taking things apart. What are we doing? This is exactly where he's at right now, right?
Yeah, it's horrible to see. I really like the guy, and I think he's going to do well in the end. But
he'll fix
one mistake. It's going to pay in the price for like 4 races. Oof.
I know.
Tough.
That's brutal. It's brutal. But you're there. You know it. You see it. It's tough.
That's a lot of the skill is forethought, not reactionary.
Yeah.
Yeah. Planning, forethought. Not sexy, but it gets you results.
Yeah. Yeah. So maybe you should have stuck with those Excel spreadsheets instead of moving everybody over to Slack. Yeah, but it's got instant messaging with emojis. I don't care. I need shit to work. Come on.
I need you to go work. Yeah.
There's something visceral and technical and desperately boring but effective with Excel.
Yeah.
There's no colorful emojis, but that's the point.
Yeah, and these chassis take time, right? I mean, the process is a long time. It's not like you can put more people on it. The chassis is sitting there in an autoclave, just
I know.
Slowly
the autoclave
baking.
Isn't like a microwave.
No, it's not like the souffle. You know, you pull it out too early, it's gonna collapse. I tell you.
What you got there? Oh, reheat. What do I have? Pizza reheat. There you go.
Chassis.
Doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
Chassis 3 reheat.
How long is that?
Fix it.
It's about 9 weeks. Whoa.
Whoa.
Where's the manual that showed me? I thought, damn it. Yeah, right here, page 4. 9 weeks.
Wait, it says I thought it was a convection oven. Didn't it circulate air? I don't know what's going on. Anyway, bad news. Let's do some awards. The first award we always give out to Move of the Race.
Stop yelling at Todd.
Get off my... All right. Move of the Race. Who did you have?
I am giving it... Well, I'm giving it to the outside pass because we saw a couple of those go on.
We did.
You know, with Lance and with Yuki. But I'm going to give it to Yuki. He set them up in
Not Lance?
I know. No,
he was
not
in
Lance.
a different category there.
He was in a different category.
Totally different category.
Yuki had it's very easy to wait for the DRS zone, but man, he stuck it in there a couple of times using the same move and against people that aren't necessarily easy to get by. So I know he knows his track well, but he definitely used his knowledge to find the right place to pass, which was a bit of a surprise, and did a great job. It was a good pass.
Right.
I beat on Yuki a lot, rightfully so. But
well, yeah. I mean, when you look at it in its entirety,
I think you know what the problem is just as well as I do.
Just saying.
Now pan over to Liam Lawson.
He's got to be careful. He's not picking his nose. He's getting a lot of shots when he's not. Yeah. Why am I keep on the TV? Yeah.
I know. Oh boy. Let's see. I had Sergio Perez on George Russell inside of 130R. Thought that was a great pass. Had to have a lot of confidence in that Red Bull to take the tighter line in 130, and then he had to have a heck of a lot of trust in George Russell wasn't going to close the door there. And pull it off. I thought that was a good
having a wheel-to-wheel clash going in 130R is a good incentive not to fight too hard.
I'm sure George is. I don't want to McNish this. I don't want to McNish this.
I've seen those replays.
Yeah. Not good. Not pretty. So it was a good one. Next award is always Donkey of the Race.
We'll do it live. Get it there, Lewis.
All right, Paul.
Sorry, Daniel. Ricciardo.
Netflix are a real bunch, aren't they?
Yes, that's who I gave it to.
You know, I know it's tough, and you think you can. Situational awareness is important. You can't ever take your eye off of that. Certainly at the start of an F1 race and the way things are going, he just didn't need to drift over. Sometimes you're in traffic, and you don't know someone's there, but you just kind of stay your line at the starts of races when there's a big gaggle, because anyone could be anywhere at any point, right? I mean, Daniel's a world-class driver, obviously, but that wasn't his finest moment.
He is. I don't know what else to say, Paul. You know, we've tried, we've given the opportunities. I don't know. Dan, you gotta pick it up, buddy. You're better than this.
Yeah. Well, one thing he doesn't want to see is the two Bobs coming in to interview him.
No.
So what exactly is it you do here?
Space out.
Space out. Like, I'm gonna go. Good luck on your firings. But I was told like it anyway. Yeah, so that's who I had. And then finally is Drive of the Race.
Get down. Get down.
Help me, Tom Cruise!
All right, Paul.
He's on
Drive of the
fire.
Race. He's on fire. Who was
I'm giving it to Yuki.
The Ukester. That's awesome. That is a polite golf applause for Yuki. That's awesome.
People are going to go back in other podcasts and go, I thought he hated Yuki.
I know. People always leave comments, oh, you guys are going to beat up on Yuki again. No, you just gave him driver of the race.
Right. Credit where dues are due, I suppose.
Yes.
You know? So I'm not going to hold back. I don't have a vendetta against him. I just haven't liked how he's been, and I didn't think his pace is that great. But I think this is a great weekend for him.
He turned it around. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
You know, I've waxed poetic about Daniel Ricciardo. I think Daniel's awesome, but when he's sucking the tailpipe on this thing, I'm going to let you know. It is what it is. I just took a chip shot at Charles Leclerc. I said he's got to get on top of this.
I know. You got a poster in your bedroom of him.
I know. I mean, look, I'm a Ferrari fan, for crying out loud. Look at this. I'm a Ferrari fan. I give my own team as much stick as anyone. So it is what it is. My drive of the race to Charles Leclerc. Yep. Yep. That's what he did. He's the only guy to pull that one stopper off, made it work. I think he had an incredible race. I really do.
He did.
Good race for him. Now,
yeah,
he wouldn't have had to.
Long game. Yeah.
He wouldn't have had to, pull rabbits out of his butt had he qualified better. But all that being said, he did well.
Yes, yes, he did.
That's what I think.
Fine job. Well done, sir.
Well done, sir. Yes, I agree. All right, well, that does it for this podcast. But if you like this podcast, well, that makes Paul and I awful happy. And you can go share your opinion. Just go to theparcfermé.com. Share your opinion with decorum and civility. As always, if you like this podcast, do us a favor. Go to your favorite podcast player, give us a good rating, and tell a friend, right? Mm-hmm. Send it out there.
Or even not a friend, you know?
Or somebody you don't like.
Just someone you don't know.
Somebody you don't know.
You know, idle chatter, let's spread love to the world.
Right.
Standing in line at the post office. Not that anyone does that
you're on the tube, you're going to Piccadilly.
Yeah.
Show the guy next to you.
Rather than just look down at the ground.
Yeah, don't look down.
Everyone's dead to me, go,
right.
Hey, you like Formula One?
Do you like Formula One? You should listen to this. Yeah. Tell somebody about it. Listen to this. They got a British guy on it. Yeah. They got a British guy on it.
I think he's British. We don't really know.
We don't know. His accent's really effed up, man.
It's really messed up. He pronounces some words.
He says he's from Essex.
Monarch. They keep saying he says Monaco, and I've never heard him say it.
Never in controversy. He says he's from Essex, but I'm not buying it.
Yeah, I'm not buying
it. Yes. Hey, how about the West Ham? The Hammers won for you.
Yes. We're fighting a Man United. They lost, right? Yeah, they lost to Chelsea. So it's still on. It's still on. It's a long shot, but it's still on.
I'm still trying to figure out which team I'm doing. I got Arsenal, I'm looking at Aston Villa. They play each other.
You could go with Aston Villa. They're like vanilla.
Are they?
Yeah. To me.
Are they always in the league, though? They're not ever.
They usually, yeah. They're doing well. I think they're doing great, actually. It's great to see. They've floundered on occasion, but and they've got the same colours as West Ham, so
they do
always fake it.
The claret and blue, right?
Yeah, not popular in American sports, the claret and blue, oddly enough.
No, it's not. It's kind of a flashy color. We don't like it over here. No, it's a weird color combination. It's a British thing, I guess.
Yeah. I guess so.
What do we know? We numbered corners. What do we know?
That's right. Yeah.
Going 3 wide into turn 4.
Very basic.
This is very basic.
What should we call this one, folks? What's the last turn called? 1. Let me think. 2? Yeah, let's go with that.
You know us Americans.
It's happy hour.
Go to bed. It's time for go to bed.
We got to get out of here.
It is happy hour.
Yeah.
It's Miller time.
Yeah.
Oh, boy. All right. So, anyway, where am I in this? Hey, a huge thank you to our Patreon supporters. As always, apologies. I didn't get a link sent out to you guys this week.
My fault.
It's Paul's fault.
Yep.
He upped the recording time to 4 p.m. Central Standard, and I had conference calls and I didn't get it sent out, but I apologize. I will get it sent out next week. Show note for next week, Grace will be in Austin for the MotoGP race, so she will be there. She plans to be home for Monday night's recording at the normal time, 8 p.m. Central or Eastern Standard Time, 8 p.m. on the East Coast, New York time. So the same link, you guys, on our Patreon page, same link works for the audience. So you can plan on joining us. If that changes, though, and her flight is late, which often happens, it will be maybe possibly Tuesday. So we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Okay, that'd be exciting. She's going to be within 3 hours of me.
She is within 3 hours of
If it wasn't the fact I was at a racetrack every other weekend, I might even make an attempt to go see that. It would be cool to see. But
it would be cool to see MotoGP. You could go down there and hang out with Pecco Bagnaia and all the bikers,
people that like bikes and stuff,
the people that do two-wheel things. It's a great series.
It is, and now Formula One owns it, so there you go.
Yeah, Formula One owns it. It's all part of the family, man.
Yeah,
it's all good. So it's all good. So anyway, all right. Well, until next week when we come back, Paul, once again, tell us, Heart of Racing, next action is where and when?
Next action is Long Beach Grand Prix in a couple of weeks.
Long Beach in a couple of weeks. Long Beach Grand Prix. Look for the Heart of Racing, Aston Martin, number 23 and number 27. Right?
Yeah, just 27. There's only no pro cars.
Just 27.
Yeah.
No pro cars. Okay.
Yep.
All right. So number 27.
Gonna
Long
be like the old
Beach,
days. One
2
car.
weeks. One car.
Mm-hmm.
One car enters, one car leaves.
We hope.
I liked your Facebook post, by the way. You speak truth, brother. Anyway, all right. That does it for us. Until next week when we come back, do it all over again. This is Todd, a.k.a. Negative Camber, saying so long.
That's it, man. Game over, man. It's game over.